spiritual world or this world that we're in, I need, it's like you make things so simplistic where, oh, okay. So whenever you get to that, to how does physics and algebra relate, I appreciate it.
Well, actually, that's going to be part of what we cover today.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay,
too bad you couldn't get her to kid on the Zoom meeting, because that's part of what we're gonna cover.
Okay, well let me see if I can work my magic on this Zoom.
And see if you can get her on. But just to give some good stable data on physics, I'm gonna pick on Sister Angela only because I think her it could be anyone, but who has the closing the gap close at hand?
I'll go get it. Yes.
Okay. One of my favorite paragraphs from Closing the Gap is on you look at the bottom of page 311 and the top of page 312.
That's where I'm going?
Yes, ma'am. It looked like Sister Peggy was going back to the captain's chair to get her book.
If she get it, let me know.
Uh-huh. Oh, Sister Angela, I started watching Star Trek again.
Okay. What episode are you on?
Oh, season 1, episode 2. I decided I'm gonna go through it all over again and see.
Oh, okay.
Go back to the beginning, go over again, and pick up whatever additional data I can contact.
Have you ever seen the episode with the meta life?
Which one is that?
That's the female, the meta life. If you got it, Sister Peggy, let me know. I'm still digging.
I'm sure I have, because I've seen all the episodes. What
was the female that she was basically born and bred for one male?
Oh, yes.
But had the power to basically intrigue any male, even Worf.
Yes, I do remember that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
That was the young lady who played Phoenix in the X-Men series.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. So yes. But who has their closing the gap?
Sister Peggy, you have yours?
Okay. If you could look at the bottom of page 311, there's a couple of quotes there by the Most High Elijah Muhammad with regards to mathematics.
Okay. Okay. Where does it start with the following quotes or words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Theology of Time?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. The following quotes are words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad in Theology of Time, June 11, 1972. If the religion of Islam takes for its base the root meaning of the universe for its religion, then I say you have an awful job trying to tangle with that type of people. They'll have you running around looking for something to prove what you say. And this is one I quoted the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. A religion whose origin or roots cannot be found in the universal order of God's creation cannot be said to be the religion of God. If your religion's roots are not found in the universal order of things, it is not from Allah, God. Almighty Allah has taught me that if we study the universe and the nature of the earth, its plants, animals, and insect life, if we study this part of Allah's creation and the natural laws working among them, we will have the key to the understanding of the way of life intended by God for you and me.
And then read that next sentence.
This is the language of a scientist.
All right. So now, what is physics? Physics, on one level, is mathematics that's applied to the natural laws that exist within the universe. In other words, there's these unseen laws that exist in the universe. Mathematics is a language that allows us to be able to study what can't be seen. Okay. So just to give the basic levels of physics, you have what's called thermodynamics. Okay. That's the study of heat. And that's the major thing that we have to study in the fire service. We have to understand what fire is composed of, what are the elements of the fire, how does it move? Because it moves through a building based on aspects of mathematics. So really physics is like mathematics applied to law. Does that make sense? Because you can have science, you can study biology, but it's not, on one level, it's not the same as physics.
Yes, sir.
In physics, you have the study of heat, you have the study of motion,
Time.
you have time, you have the study of light, which is called optics. You have the study of sound, which is called acoustics. So it's mathematics that's applied to different, like with the Most High Elijah Muhammad says, the natural laws of the universe, that's physics. Where algebra comes in, algebra is a level of mathematics that allows you to understand the structure of the formulas that you're using. Because now you're using letters, and it allows you to see the structure of what you're studying. Okay. In that quote, when you look at, when he talks about, he says insect life, correct? There's a certain aspect of physics that's applied to, I'm getting some feedback here. There's a certain level of physics.
You are unmuted.
Sister Denise.
Everybody has to put themselves
Sister
on mute.
Denise.
Yeah.
Yeah, guilty.
Just having a little malfunction. That's no big, no problem. Okay. So when you look at physics as applied to insect life, there's a saying that the way the bumblebee is formed, it should not be able to fly because of its structure. Okay. I'm trying to find. Okay. So in other words, we're gonna cover something that's similar to that today. Today, I don't want to say today's gonna be kind of strange. It's just that a certain demo kit popped in my head in order to kind of explain the concept that I would hope to get across today. And the goal is to kind of follow the words of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan when he says, whoever controls the diameter of your thinking controls the circumference of your activity, correct?
Yes.
So what I hope to share today with the believers is a concept that expands the diameter of our thinking. In other words, to get us to think outside of the box that we normally think in and begin to see things from different perspectives. We're going to deal with one concept. We're going to deal with one concept of fractions, how to simplifying fractions. But as I was studying that, I saw something else in there with the help of Allah, and it took me back to something that the minister said in that videotape that we watched, I think it was like last week, where the minister was talking about we're born into the mind of Allah. And he says that this represents the law of God, the way of God, the thinking of God, the characteristics of God. And as I was looking at how to simplify fractions, I was like, wow, I see something else in here that we can apply to learning that will allow us to learn multiple subjects at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
Because if you look at it mathematically, if it takes 4 years to get 1 degree in Western civilization, how long would it take to get 360 degrees of wisdom?
Mm.
And if I'm not mistaken, 360 times 4 is 1,440. I think that's what it is. And none of us are going to be around that long to get 360 degrees of wisdom, correct?
Correct.
But when you look at the ancient schools of Kemet, and then specifically with Yakub, we're told that he mastered all the schools of his time by the age of 18, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So there has to be some methodology that we can use to increase
Yeah, Mama was telling me.
the speed of our thinking
Zane's on his way and you're waiting.
to master more subjects in less time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. So today, the goal is, with the help of Allah, is to share with you what I was able to pick up, because anything I find, I have to give it. And then hopefully all of this will make sense and we'll be able to connect it all together. Because there's a subject I'm going to put on the table. I know Sister Angela has heard of this. Some of us may not have heard of this topic I'm going to use. And we might say, well, what does that topic have to do with fractions? And I can almost guarantee you everything will come together. And I'm praying that it stresses the diameter of our thinking to produce some cognitions, to give us something that we've never thought about before. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I used your equation with the couple. I meant to tell you that you gave me.
Oh, marriage, M equals 1 F.
Yeah.
How did it
So
work?
I'm sure it's gonna go into what you're about to show us.
Actually, this is going to take us a little bit into something else. Now, Sister Angela knows what a wormhole is.
Yeah, I do.
If you watch Star Trek, you know about wormholes. Peg, you know what a wormhole is, correct? Okay.
Yes, sir.
But now, here's the strange, I want to say strange. As I'm studying certain things, other things pop in my head, and I say, okay, let me go study that to see why that popped in my head. Okay. There's two scientists I like listening to that teach those upper levels of physics and astronomy. One is Neil deGrasse Tyson, and the other one is an astrophysicist by the name of Michio Kaku. And
Yes,
they
they're too good.
okay, so Sister Sultana knows what I'm talking about. They take advanced subjects and they break them down in such a way they make them easy to understand. Okay, so we're gonna use the concept of the wormhole. We're gonna extract it. We're gonna extract something from it because we're gonna use it as a demo kit. The supporting information is going to come from problem number 30 in the problem book. Okay. And we're going to look at how much time does it take to make 10 round trips to the planet Pluto at the speed of thought. All of this is going to connect. Some of it might be a little difficult to digest, but that's okay. As long as you get something out of this, that's the main concept. The main concept is expand the diameter of our thinking to increase the circumference of our activity. And as long as we gain even just a little bit of case gain, then we've accomplished what it is that we hope to accomplish. And this is going to tie into fractions and then something else that I hope that will expand our thinking. So I know it sounds like a lot. I don't fully understand why all this came together the way it did, but I have faith to know that some of, if not all of us, will gain something from this. Because if we're to speak the language of scientists, we have to expand our horizons. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We can't be afraid of physics and mathematics. And the goal is, mutual aid Muhammad wants to apply mutual aid to get us to overcome mathematical engrams. That's my number one goal in life, is to get us to actually enjoy, get over our fears and be able to confront the different levels of mathematics. Okay. So before we begin, does anyone have any question before we start the PowerPoint? Let me pull up the chat so I can keep an eye on that as well. Okay. Okay, let us begin. Now, before I begin this, I wish Sister Belinda was here to explain how she was able to get her screen the way she had it yesterday with all the names on the side. Because I still haven't figured out how to do that.
The Zoom screen?
Yes, you know how you have all the people listed on the side where it doesn't actually block your PowerPoint?
Yeah, you would have to do that in your settings, and I think you have to do it prior.
Okay, then I will do that the next time. But I do have my other computer working over here, so I'm DJing again today. I'm going between 3 computers. Okay, now I can see everybody there. And let us. Okay, everyone can see my screen, correct?
Yes, sir.
All
Yes,
right.
sir.
So this, oh, go ahead, Sister Melanie. You're on mute.
Assalamu alaikum. I just wanted to add, if you have view options on your screen, and I'm not an expert on this, but if you have view options on your screen, you can do side by side, because that's what I do, so that I can still see the participants, but I can see your screen. And it's under view options and you choose side by side. I don't know if that will help, but that's what I do, sir.
So it's going to be under view options side by
Yes.
side. Okay.
Right.
And a side-by-side gallery.
Okay. So then let me do this real quick.
Right. You click on view and then it says
I got
gallery.
speaker, gallery, and immersive.
All right, do gallery. Try gallery, sir.
Oh, I have it on gallery right now.
Okay.
If it doesn't work, I'll figure it out
Okay.
after.
All right, sir. Okay.
Yeah,
I
I'll
just
go
want-
through it afterwards.
Okay.
But thank you. At least I have a starting point.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'm still trying to master this Zoom. Okay.
So, Brother Lukeman, now that you're back on your presentation, at the top of your screen, do you see view right up in the corner?
I have more. No, I don't see view.
It'll be real tiny.
Nope. I have everything but view.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, usually when you're the host, that's something that you have to pre-do.
Okay,
Okay.
I'll do that for my next time.
Yes.
Okay, quick overview. Simplifying rational expressions. That's the concept. Okay, simplifying rational expressions. This is going to be taught as a cycle of action. And what it does is it allows the student to identify the common factors of both expressions. And those expressions, as we have discussed for the past couple of weeks, you have your numerator and you have your denominator, correct?
Yes, sir.
And when you simplify it, what we're doing is we're going to rewrite the expression in its lowest terms. And I'll explain what that means. But contained in this operation, and I'll say it like our brother used to say, Brother Batin, this concept is like a fundamental, meaning in this concept, we will be able to extract other concepts. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you look at this from the perspective of the Western educational system will teach us mathematics in order to answer questions on the test and pass the test, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. That is from one perspective, that's left brain thinking. which is necessary because left brain thinking allows us to study concepts in order to understand the concept. But when you apply right brain to the same concept, right brain allows you to look at this one concept from different perspectives and make it applicable to various other concepts. Okay. Left brain is considered to be masculine, right brain is considered to be feminine. So it's almost as if we have a truth that says a nation can rise no higher than its woman, correct?
Yes, sir.
We could also say that applies on a mental level. We can't rise any higher than the feminine side of our own thinking. Okay, the feminine side of our thinking, and this information is actually coming from a book called The Alphabet versus the Goddess, and the author's name, I believe, is Leonard Schlain, Schlain. He is, if I'm not mistaken, he's he's either a neurosurgeon or a neuroscientist, and he talks about left brain, right brain. This same concept you'll find, there's a book called The Metu Neter by Ra'amen Nefer Amen. He also speaks about left brain, right brain. The goal of the educational system over the past couple of hundred years has been to kill off the feminine side of our thinking. So they have treated the feminine side of our thinking the same way they have treated the woman in society. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And as we awaken the feminine side of our thinking, we begin to think on higher levels and on multiple dimensions. Okay. The concept that we're going to learn by simplifying a rational expression, we're going to make it applicable to studying any concept, any thought, or any idea. Yes, ma'am, Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. So how does that relate to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad saying that our brain was created to think right? Is that still we're dealing with the female, the right brain expression?
Well, to think right implies just thinking based on truth.
Oh, okay.
But now truth, if we look at it from the perspective of how the brain operates, there's two parts to the truth.
Okay.
There's two parts to the truth. We have, like, for example, we're gonna learn something from a literal standpoint. We're gonna learn it as it is.
Okay.
Then we're gonna extract it. We're gonna extract from it a concept that we can apply in other areas. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. Okay.
And I'll give you a quick example. And this is one way that a woman's mind operates. It operates on a holistic level, meaning, let's say the child comes in and you ask the child if they did X, Y, and Z. You're not looking at just what the child said. You're looking at how they say it. You're looking at body language. You're listening to the tone of the voice. Is the voice inflecting up? Is it inflecting down? Can my child keep eye contact with me, or are they looking around the room? So the feminine aspect of thinking takes all these elements as a large picture. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what we're doing is we're striving to reawaken that feminine part of our thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we're gonna use that concept, and we're gonna do one exercise where we're gonna find common terms in definitions, which will allow us to marry concepts together. So what happens is, as we begin to marry concepts together, we begin to understand multiple subjects at the same time. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Find them inside each other.
Yes, yes. So the cycle of action, this is the cycle of action of actually how we're going to simplify a rational expression. Then we're going to go through some steps of some actual, the actual facts of, we're going to do one example, and then we're going to keep it moving. So the cycle of action is this. The first thing we want to do is we want to factor out the numerator and the denominator. Now, I'm going to do a quick review of numerator and denominator. But if you write down this cycle of action, the first thing you want to do is you want to factor out the numerator and the denominator. The second step is identify the factors that the numerator and denominator have in common. And then the last thing is you're going to reduce the numerator and the denominator using the common expression. All this will make sense in a moment. Okay, all this is going to make sense. But keep in mind, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has said that this universe represents the will of God, the way of God, the thinking of God, the characteristic of God, correct?
Yes, sir.
And if the equations are expressions or communications that explain these unseen phenomena, then these equations and the mathematics represents the thinking of Allah, the way of Allah, the characteristics of Allah, the law of Allah, correct?
Yes, sir.
And so the end result is the simplified form of the rational expression. In other words, we could take 10 different religions. We can take one concept. And if we can find, if we say the concept of devil, and if we look at devil based on Islam, we look at devil based on Christianity, we look at devil based on Buddhism, we look at devil based on, we could say Sikhism, we can look at devil based on Zoroastrianism, if we look at devil from the level of Shintoism. As we go across and look at that, we're going to find commonality between all those expressions of devil across the gamut of the different religions. And if we can see the common thread that's in all of them, then we will know all of those religions with respect to the concept of devil at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
So if I'm in a room and I have a Buddhist, I have a Muslim, I have a Christian, and I have someone who practices Zoroastrianism, I would be, when I say I'm talking about all of us here, will be able to communicate. In a Scientologist, I can communicate with everyone in the room on one topic because I'll be able to explain it in the language that they know. So what have I done? I have simplified a rational expression. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
Go ahead, Sister Melanie. You're on mute. Okay.
Yes, sir, I took it off. So what I'm hearing you say is that and this is my language, but we're reducing it to immutable principles that
Yes.
go across. Okay, all right, gotcha.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All
We're taking the various levels of concepts or ideas, and we're extracting the primary truth. And if we understand the primary truth, so instead of studying 10 different subjects, if you understand the truth, then you already know the 10 subjects. So do we spend time studying 10 different concepts, or do we spend our time studying one concept that can be applied in 10 different ways? Okay. Because then we can learn more in less time, right?
Yes, sir.
So our lessons tell us that what we have is the fulfillment of all the religions and their scriptures, correct? Then our Supreme Wisdom is a book that contains those fundamental truths. And once we understand the fundamental truths that are in our supreme wisdom, then we already know all the other religions. Because we have a book of formulae, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I like that. Formulae.
Formulae, that's the language of the minister. That's
Book of
kind of what must be done. The God, what's it called? The Great War. It was a lecture he did at Mas Miriam, and that's what the minister said. The minister said that God speaks in the language of formulae.
Okay.
Okay. So this mental exercise can be used to study any concept to find a merit. So what I hope to share with the believers by Allah's grace is the tools that can be used to facilitate our learning of any subject that we apply our mind to. Okay, go ahead, Sister Ania.
I wanted to know if what I'm about to explain, if that actually applies to this simplifying rational expressions, or if that would be a different mathematical formula. I was reading one of Brother Saad's books, Moses, A Sign of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And in there, he draws lots of parallels between the life of Moses, as we read in the scriptures of both the Bible and the Holy Quran, and the life of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and our sojourn here in the Western Hemisphere, in the diaspora, as our whole slave experience, past and present. And so he draws so many parallels that you can actually see that the life of the lifestyle that is described of Moses, you can see where the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad fit those same descriptions. And so that you can see that Moses was actually a sign of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So would that be the same as simplifying rational expression?
Yes, ma'am. Because if you have that concept, now go take some of the other religions, and if you study the history or the histories of the prophets that founded those religions, like if you study what's called the Baha'i, and you study the life of Baha'u'llah, who was the founder of the Baha'i faith, you will see correlations between him and the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So all these other prophets are a sign. They give different parts of the puzzle, I guess you can say. They give us different pieces. When it says that Joseph had a multicolored coat? I think that's the language. Okay. Well, if you look at that with respect to the minister has a multicolored coat, meaning, and you can look on this on various levels, the minister can speak on topics on various degrees and levels. He's clothed in a coat of many colors, meaning he has the support of many different people from many different religions, from many different races.
Right.
And so as we study, if we study the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, study the minister, we're actually studying the prophets of old. And if we study the prophets of old, we're actually studying those that are present with us today. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So that makes perfect sense. We're rationalizing, we're simplifying rational expressions. There is a I think it's in the book of Acts, and it talks about one who would speak to every nation, every kindred, and every tongue, and every group would hear them speak in his own language. Has anyone heard that before?
Yes, sir.
So the way I always perceive that is, it doesn't mean I'm speaking English, but someone who speaks French hears French, and someone who speaks Spanish hears Spanish. But when the minister speaks, the mathematician hears mathematics. The physicist hears physics. The spiritual individual hears spiritual concepts. Every individual hears the truth in the language that they speak. And when we simplify rational expressions, what are we doing? We're learning how to do the same thing. So I can speak to a Buddhist. I can speak to a Buddhist about the Buddha, which is a sign, in my humble opinion, there's what's called Maitreya. And I think it's called the seventh Buddha, I believe it's called. The Buddha that is to be seen in the modern context, who is like the sum total of all the Buddhas that came before him. But when you look at one of the descriptions of the Buddha in the modern time, guess how he's described, and guess when you'll know that he's present. You do the research, it says he will descend from a disc-like object. So, Sister Anya, you're right on point. The more we study and we see the connections, it allows us to communicate with various people from various religions, from various groups, but we can communicate with all of them at the same time because we're able to jump from religion to religion to religion. Does that make sense? Did I just lose everyone on that one, or does that make sense?
No, you here. I was
Yes,
waiting
sir.
for somebody.
Okay.
Makes
Yes,
sense.
sir.
Now here's where we're gonna jump from religion to religion to religion. This is gonna make sense in a quick minute. Go ahead, Sister Angela.
If I go into where you're going, stop me, okay?
Okay.
'Cause you know, we start oscillating
Yeah.
and the synchronicity falls right into place. So stop me if I'm going where you're going, because I don't think it's by chance that you opened this up with "A nation can rise no higher than this woman." And I know I heard that the teaching on the subconscious mind being the female, the feminine side of the mind. And I always wondered what caused Satan's first attack to be on a woman, right? Okay. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has taught us that our ancestors, knowing that the devil was going to rule, took and hid our civilization from the devils, gave them one book, and basically kept them in a cage that they really didn't realize that they're in, right? And we are always taught that the best kept secret is the female. And I know most of us consider that it is because of procreation. Looking into this on a fraction level, and when you said wormhole earlier, I thought of a tornado. I watched a tornado split into 3 on the ground, but was 1 in the air. Right? Okay, follow me now. So my question or my comment is this. You said that the Master Father Muhammad taught in formulae, and the minister said the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad taught in theory. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan is fashioned as a woman, and you just said that he has the ability to speak in different languages. As a mother with many children, she knows the language of each child, and she can deal with each child equally yet different. So my question or comment is this. Could the common denominator of this fraction to everything be the nature of the female and her ability to think? The subconscious mind is not bound. This is why theta sleep is so important if we learn how to do it. The subconscious mind is not bound to, like the Matrix, the laws of conscious sleep or consciousness. Subconscious is not bound to the laws of consciousness. So in theta sleep, we're taught to take problems into that theta sleep, and you'll be surprised how well you can solve it because you're not basically bound to all the noise of your conscious waking mind.
Mm-hmm.
So were you going in the direction of this female, the reality of the female and the possible secret, a possible secret that's within her, and her ability to not tamper with, mix, or dilute truth with selflessness? That's my question and statement.
So what brings to mind of what you're talking about now is called lucid dreaming. If you have the ability to become conscious in a dream state, then you have the ability, your thought process is unlimited. And there are stories that many scientists and mathematicians actually came up with the solutions to great scientific dilemmas while they were sleeping.
Right.
But the way that you just presented it, that's entirely new to me. I was not even going nowhere near that.
Okay, yes, sir.
So you need to cultivate that subject. You need to get back to your Tuesday night.
Oh, look at you. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Cultivate that concept, because that sounds very, very interesting. Because that's not even where I was going, but
Okay.
I would definitely be able to journey in that direction, because that's interesting.
Yes, sir.
But I will say this though. In the ancient Kemetic tradition, you have the eye of Ra and you have the eye of Heru, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right and left eye.
Mm-hmm.
But what some individuals believe, that when they say the eye of Ra, that they believe that the eye of Ra represents the eye of God.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that I have read before is that the eye of Ra is feminine. And I've read one story where God, Ra, in the Kemetic sense, gave that vision to his daughter, or one of his daughters. So the Ra was something that was given to the female. When you look at the signs of the Dajjal from the Islamic standpoint, the Dajjal is said that's the Antichrist. One of his right eye is injured. Sister Sultan, I think you might have heard that before, correct? From the Sufi standpoint, maybe?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the Dajjal, if you look at it literally, we're looking around for an individual whose right eye is injured. Okay, that's like looking for someone to walk on water and turn water to wine. You ain't gonna find it.
Right.
However, for a person's right eye to be injured could be an allegory to represent that they don't have the ability to see things from the feminine perspective. They can't use right brain or holistic thinking. Does that make sense?
You actually answered the question. I watched Penny Dreadful. You ever heard of Penny Dreadful?
No.
And this is a female that's basically being hunted by two types of Satans. And she's being hunted because he needs a bride. He needs the female. He needs the feminine energy. So I never understood that until now. And her name on the show, her satanic name, has Ra in it.
Oh,
interesting, isn't it? Yeah.
And what's the name of that?
Penny Dreadful. I'll send it to you.
Okay, yeah, because I watched that in between my Star Trek.
Is that on Netflix, Sister Angela?
It may be. I know I watch it on the stars.com or stars something. The Stars Network.
Okay.
That's my next series I got to go to. Yes, ma'am, Sister Peggy.
My daughter watches Penny Dreadful, and she watches it on Netflix.
Yes.
Okay. Netflix.
I don't like it.
There we go. All right. Let's go back. Okay. So the Astronomy as a demo kit. I have a quick video. It's only about a minute long. It gives a basic definition of what a wormhole is. Now, here's an exercise I want us all to do. If you have a piece of paper near you, I want you to draw 2 dots about 6 to 7 inches apart. Okay. 2 dots on the paper, 6 to 7 inches apart. Okay. Draw a line connecting those 2 dots. And on that line, I want you to write, you can probably just write the number 100 years. Okay. This will all make sense in a minute. This is, see, when you understand the student hat and the study tech that L. Ron Hubbard has presented, what he's really doing is, and he says this himself, he says he's not given us anything new. He said this is an old technology. He said that this is an old technology. This is a lost tech, he called it, if I'm not mistaken. It's called a lost tech. And when you look in the book, Creation of Human Ability, he goes on to name the source of the wisdom. Guess what word he used to describe the source of this wisdom? He used the word Asiatics. So he gave credit to you never heard that before?
Yes, sir. You just reminded me. Yes, sir.
He said this comes from the Asiatics. He said this is not coming from the Greeks or the Greek philosophers. He said they're giving credit for it. He said, but the source of this is the Asiatics. Okay.
So you said right on the line 100 years?
Right. So you got 2 dots. You want to connect those 2 dots with a line. And that line is going to be a length that's going to represent 100 years, 200 years. It doesn't matter. That's going to represent the time it would take to travel from one dot to the other. Okay. This is going to be the simplest way to explain what a wormhole is. And this is all building up to something else. Okay. So if you're a Trekkie, a wormhole is what they use. It's something that's being discussed in what's called theoretical physics. And it allows the ability to travel large distances in almost no time at all. Okay. That's the whole purpose of a wormhole. It's a pathway that opens up that allows you to transcend space and time and make travel instantaneous. If there's anyone here that has watched any of the Dune movies, either the original from 1984 or the most recent Dune, they call it bending or folding space, traveling without moving, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, that concept is something that the theoretical physicists are actually working on, trying to figure out how to travel these large, vast areas of space in a short period of time. Because right now, there's certain places in the universe, in order to get there, it might take 4 light years or take 5 light years. And you might say, well, 4 years is not a long time. Well, no, that's 4 years traveling at the speed of light, which we don't have the ability to do right now. But if you can come up with a wormhole, then you can travel from here to Pluto instantaneously. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sister Ania.
They gave
I wave back to them.
Go ahead.
They gave a representation of that in Fringe, when I forget what they were referred to, the people that wore the suits and the hats. And they would go through doors, and every time they went through the doors, I think they had to have their hat on or something like that, and then it would put them into another place and time. So they had traveled just by going through the door, but they had traveled distance-wise to a different location. So that was that same concept of folding space that I saw in Dune.
So let me ask you this. Was that the movie with Matt Damon in it? There's a movie similar to that with Matt Damon in it, where they were going through doors as well. I just can't remember the name of it.
Right. That, you know what, I'm mixing two concepts because they showed that in Fringe and they showed that in that movie with Matt Damon. Yes, sir.
I just can't remember the name. Okay. So that's the basic concept of a wormhole. Going large distances without wasting any time, basically. Okay. So the wormhole is a demo code. So this concept, again, it may seem as though it has nothing to do with the topic for discussion. However, it's going to make sense. I think when it's all said and done, we'll grasp it. So what is a wormhole? Okay. A wormhole is a theoretical concept found in astronomy. It is a pathway between two distant points that would allow a journey which would take hundreds or thousands of years to be done in a second, a minute, or in hours. Okay, so I think we kind of got the basic concept of a wormhole, correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
sir.
Okay. When you look at it from the perspective of Dune, they call it folding or bending space. But they also call it bending space when you deal with it from the perspective of physics as well. And you'll understand it in a minute because we're going to do a little exercise. So here's where I got a quick video. This is Michio Kaku, who's a theoretical physicist. And he's going to explain this. And this video is only, I think it's a little bit more than a minute.
This is a wormhole. Think of taking a sheet of paper and putting two dots on it. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But if I can fold that sheet of paper, then perhaps I can create a shortcut through space and time, called a wormhole. This is a genuine solution of Einstein's equations. We can actually see this in string theory. The question is, how practical is it to go through one of these things? We don't know. In fact, there's a debate among physicists today. Stephen Hawking, many physicists are jumping into the game of trying to figure out whether it's physically possible to go all the way through a wormhole. Because if you could, then you might be able to use this as a time machine. Since string theory is a theory of everything.
Okay, so here's how we're going to apply this to what we're studying. If a wormhole, okay, now take your, you see, have your piece of paper?
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it takes 100 years to get from one dot to another, okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to fold the paper up so that both the dots actually touch. And then when you fold your paper up so that both the dots touch, I want you to take your pencil and stick it through those dots. Now, when you stick your the pencil through the dots, what is the distance between those two dots? Now, once you fold it together, they're right next to each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if you stuck your pen all the way through the paper, and then you folded the paper, you should have two holes in the paper, right?
Yes, sir.
So instead of your pencil traveling 100 years from dot to dot, you fold the paper, the pencil goes through instantaneously, then you unfold, and now you've traveled that distance in an instant, correct?
Okay. Alhamdulillah, yes.
Okay, so now here's why this is relevant. This is a demo kit, and remember, if this is something that's being covered in theoretical physics, then this is something that is taking place, and it represents elements of the thinking of the mind of Allah, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, if this is something that's taking place within the mind of Allah, and you and I are elements of that same mind, then there's something in this that we can learn, or we can actually learn something about ourselves, correct?
Yeah.
So the goal today, now each one of us is going to have our own cognitions, and by all means, if you have a cognition, I want to hear it, because your cognition will increase the tone of the conversation. But the main premise is this. Let me plug in my battery. Okay. The main concept is this: if you can fold space and travel from planet to planet to planet instantaneously, are we able to? Is it possible that we can travel from subject to subject to subject instantaneously?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Now, next thought is this. Would traveling between 2 points or folding space have the same effect as if we had the ability to increase the velocity of that ship going from point to point? Does that make sense?
Can you repeat that?
Okay. To get from one point to the other point instantaneously can be done by folding the space, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But another way we could do it is if we had the ability to increase the velocity of the ship. We could do the same thing, correct?
That means make the ship go faster.
Make it go faster, yes.
Yes.
So that does that all make sense?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Now,
It's like traveling at warp speed.
yes, now you're talking about warp. You're talking about warp speeds. Another good movie to watch, is what was the movie with Kevin Spacey? What was that movie, Kevin?
K-Pax.
K-Pax, yes, K-Pax. K-Pax is another one. He was traveling faster than the speed of light.
In light too.
And he was traveling in light. He actually was light, and when he came, he came in the person of someone, right? Because that body wasn't his.
Right.
He was in communication with that individual, and he came in the person of that person. That's a whole nother. Go ahead, Sister Angela.
I'm glad you brought up K-Pax because it adds to something that I saw. So I'm a Bermuda Triangle unsolved mysteries type of sister, and I was watching a pilot. He was an Air Force pilot, very seasoned veteran pilot, making a run that normally takes him 3 hours. This day, and this is true, it's not a movie, it's a documentary. As he was flying, he started out, he got up to his altitude, then he noticed that everything started going haywire. The lights and everything, instrument panel just went crazy, as if he went into an electromagnetic storm. And of course he was scared, and he said then it got really dark around him. But the plane is still flying. So he said this went on for close to 30 minutes. And after the darkness around him, instrument panel lit back up, he had control of the plane again. However, he was at his destination. And he was certain that he was in a wormhole. So since you talked about K-Pax, and I always think about the 2011 plenary session in Savior's Day, what always left me kind of puzzled is when they went inside the abductees to remove the metal that was inside of them, this metal moved on its own. A little tiny piece of metal had enough intelligence to know that something was coming after it. So that had me thinking. Now here you go with K-Pax, because all of this is going in my head while you're talking. The light force traveled in light, like getting beamed, beam me up, Scotty, or beam me down, Scotty, whatever the case may be. And my thing is, what if there's no fold at all? What if within these wormholes is an atomic open enclosure, meaning pull the atoms very tight to close the gap in space and then releasing said atoms. And that's it.
So these are the type of conversation I live for.
Sister Angela, would you just go over that last part again, please?
Okay. When Brother Lukman said something about K-Pax, my mind, and I would tell us all, go watch the plenary session 2011 Savior's Day, when they were exploring all the so-called UFO data in the Nation of Islam. The minister flew in so many people. And it's so full of wonderment. What I walked away with was, I'm clear that Allah has the power to endow whatever he create, especially on an atomic level. If that is true, then the atoms in space don't have to be bent. They can simply be pulled and manipulated. That's what I'm saying.
And you're in a whole nother area of quantum physics. Because what you're saying right now is actually things that they're actually studying, where they have proven that certain particles can be in two different locations at the same time.
Wow, see that?
Definitely.
Now,
I think that's what happened to the pilot, though.
There's a possibility, but now, did not Mother Tanetta Muhammad say that the Savior had the ability to be in more than one location at the same time? There's a video of Mother Tanetta speaking about that, and she makes the statement that the Most High Elijah Muhammad and the Savior had the ability to do what we call time travel, or travel between dimensions.
This is heaven.
And my thought is, if Mother Tanetta Muhammad says it, it's gospel.
Yes.
Okay.
So with the demonstration that you had us do, folding the paper and bringing those two dots together, putting the hole in there, you essentially have brought two different locations together. So yes, you could, if you're using that concept, yes, you can be in two different places at the same time.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. Sister Sultana, I see you here.
Yes, assalamualaikum. Okay, so that reminds me of a story. True stories. A couple of true stories, actually. But this one I'm going to tell you about is one of the stories that's archived in the French archives in France about Sheikh Amadou Bamba when they were taking him to exile. One of the trips, the soldiers came to pick him up, and it was one of the gentlemen escorted him to a spot, dropped him off, and when he went back to the spot where he picked him up at, before the sheikh was there, he's like, I just dropped you off, but wait a minute, how did you get back over here? He just was so overwhelmed, he literally died. It put him in such a state of shock. He said, I just dropped you off that so many miles away. There's no way you could have got back here before me. And so it just blew his mind. He literally passed away from like shock. That's one story. And there's another one was, as far as being in two places at once, basically, or I don't know if that was a wormhole experience, but I had a similar experience when I was younger, and I literally for a millisecond saw my body. I was competing. I was doing a competition. I actually literally saw my body skating for a millisecond, and then I went into total darkness and had an experience of what I would call pure consciousness, with not existing in a body or any form, but my body was skating, and my body did its job. It skated, and when I came off the ice, I just was not aware of what happened, but I said to myself, did I just skate? Because I wasn't here, I was somewhere else. Yeah, so it's possible. Time travel is possible. Going through dimensional shifts, just depending on what state you're in. And at that time, I was only about 12, but my mother told me to go and meditate and just be still and be quiet and be alone before I go skate. And that's what I did. And when I came out of that state, I felt an overwhelming sense of peace and calmness. So when I went out to skate, I was just very relaxed and very calm. But as soon as I heard the first note of my music, nothing else existed. I just was gone somewhere else. So that's just to say that, when I hear everyone speak of these different things, and when you hear me sometimes I chuckle a little bit, only because it's just beautiful that people are being awoken to this beautiful existence of existing in multiple spaces at once.
And this is the importance, Sister Sultana. If I was to bring up certain experiences right now, I believe many individuals would raise their hands, but these are things we experience that we can't discuss with people for fear of them looking at us like we're crazy.
Exactly. And I only share it with people who I know are able to handle those kind of experiences. Yep.
But another good book for those that are the like nice thick books, there's a book called the Autobiography of the Yogi.
Very good. Yeah, Yogananda.
Paramhansa Yogananda.
Yes.
Excellent book. And the weird part about that book is, as a child, the libraries are probably about a block away from my house. So I would, around the age of 8, I would always go hang out at the library. And Sister Sultana, you'll understand this, but whenever I would walk into the library, I would feel as though the book was staring at me, because it's just a person's face on the cover and it looks like a woman. And I would come into the library and look, and I always felt like this woman was staring at me. It was the cover of the book. So that was back in the late 70s. And when I would go to the bookstore in the mall, because that's what I would do on the weekends, I would go hang out in the bookstore. I would see that book, and it was like the eyes would follow me as I would walk through. It was like the eyes would follow me as I walked across, through the bookstore. In 93, I had a job interview, and there was an Indian man that was in the orientation with me, and at the lunch break we spoke, and he invited me to his home to have tea afterwards. He said, I have a gift to give you, and he gave me the Autobiography of the Yogi. Now the cover is Paramhansa Yogananda, he's a man, but he has very feminine features.
Yeah, and long hair.
And very long hair. And so that book followed me through my whole childhood. I just read it recently, probably about 6 or 7 years ago. And there were certain things I read in that book. I'm like, no, this stuff ain't impossible. This is some hocus pocus Hollywood type stuff. But then I was listening to things that Mother Tainetta was speaking about, and she was confirming the things that were in the book as being true. What happens is we have to expand the diamond of our thinking, because around the wrong, I don't want to say the wrong individuals, but around certain individuals, they start saying, oh, here comes the bean soup scientist, because individuals are speaking about things that are outside the circumference of their understanding.
Right.
And I think this is why some of us didn't take unveiling the number 19 as serious, because we couldn't grasp it. But if you go back and read that information now, in my humble opinion, it was preparing us for the tech of Scientology.
Mm-hmm.
It was preparation.
Mm-hmm. Nothing's impossible. In Allah, all things are possible.
Yes, ma'am. That's right. That's right. Go ahead, Sister Tina. Wait, what happened to Sister Zakia? She had her hand up. Where you at, Sister Zakia?
Alaikum. I actually put my hand down. I felt like I wasn't going to be on the same topic, but when Sister Angela talked about the Bermuda Triangle, I always thought that as being a certain dimension. Brother Ishmael talked about looking at things instead of looking at it like black and white. We now have to look at things in 3D, you know, like an octagon shape or just another dimension and another level, because that's where we're headed and where we're going. And I think the lecture was just us trying to show us or tell us how to expand our mind and our thinking, because that's where we're headed. And knowing when we do go into another dimension of thought, keep that and study that. Mother Tanetta was explaining that to me some time ago about when we have those type of thoughts is a reason for that, and to just study it. So Sister Angela, I know you on to something, but hold on, I'm sorry. My bad. 1 second. Channel 7 news over there. My bad. Yeah, we got a little incident going on out here. So I think I lost my thought. But
you're talking about Mother Tanetta?
Yeah, in reference to the
follow that thought.
Yes, follow that thought and don't think you being crazy or whatever, because a lot of times when I even myself have it's like a subconscious thought and like activity is really real, but we have to put our minds in it. It's bigger than me. I don't know. I just try to remember it. And so when I hear somebody else talk about it and saying like the same thing, I'm just trying to give back to what I was told to just study that, because it's going somewhere. And it is a reality. It is a true reality. And because we are over here on this dimension, don't think that there's not another dimension. So we're actually getting a little glimpse. And I think the more we study and tune in and focus, meditate, whatever, we will be able to tune in to that even more. So I just wanted to add that I didn't want to waste thought, or when she talked about that Bermuda Triangle, because I always dealt with and thought about that Bermuda Triangle. And remember the plane, they even made a movie about that plane that was missing, that they never found or whatever. But
are you talking about that? Are you talking about flight from that flight from the Philippines?
What is it, 147 or something? Yeah, they did a movie in that.
Do you remember what Mother Tanetta Muhammad said about that?
No, I never heard it. Can you tell me?
Wait, I'll send it. The issue was from the Final Call newspaper. I'll find it. It's from July 4th. I want to say 2016, but I'll get the actual facts on it. You know, Mother Tanetta Muhammad made the statement that plane was actually taken, if I remember correctly, by a ship out of the sky. You remember her saying that?
I remember that, because I remember that.
She actually went on in the article, Unveiling number 19, went on to name the individual who is the captain over the wheels. And I'll send the article out so you have the actual facts on that one. But there's 2 quick points I'm gonna give on that. First question is this: the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, with regards to the universe, this represents the mind of God, correct? Okay. Does any one of us have the ability to transcend or go outside of the mind of God?
Absolutely not.
Okay. With that thought in mind, then, whatever thought we have, isn't that a thought that originates within the mind of God?
Yes. Brother Jabril said there's no such thing as new thought.
No such thing as what?
New thought.
That's right. Yes, ma'am. So now, with that thought in mind, is it possible? Can we use the building of the mother plane as a demo kit to present each one of us when we get our quiet time to ourselves? Don't we have our own thoughts with regards to the teachings?
Absolutely.
Don't we have our own cognitions?
Yes, sir.
So if you look at mother plane from the perspective of, because if you clear the word plane represents a level of consciousness. So a mother plane, and I heard Brother Nuri teach on this before, a mother plane, we could say, is a level of consciousness that gives birth to other concepts, correct?
Absolutely.
Now, if each one of us is thinking on higher thoughts with different frequencies of different concepts, wouldn't that be the same as each one of us building our part of the ship and then we bring our parts together when we have our Zoom meetings?
Yes, sir.
So we're building a mother plane right now, correct?
Yes, sir.
Same concept. So whenever you have a thought, sometimes what happens is we doubt the thought because the thought is not connected to anything we've heard before. And so it's a new thought for us. But the minister says there's no new thoughts. It's all been here before. But it's new to us as an individual. In Dianetics, that's called a theta postulate. It's a postulate that's not rooted in anything. It's the same as it's the same as revelation. Some of us have great ideas and we never write the idea down. And then when we go back to try to find it, the idea just left us just that quick. And that idea is the foundation of a whole nother level of thinking. If you write it down, and then if you go based on the what's given to us in study guide number 2, take that thought, which is an extract of clay, and then take that thought and evolve it to a clot, a lump of flesh, and then a lump of flesh that you clothe it with bones, and then you clothe the bone with flesh. Study guide number 2, building human potential. Take that idea and chew on it and build on it, write it down, let it evolve. You will see that the idea that Allah has blessed us to receive 9 times out of 10 could be the solution to something we've been trying to figure out within our own self, but we have to do the work to evolve that idea the way the womb provides the environment to evolve the fetus. Does that make sense? Same concept. Sister Tina.
Yes, I had several cognitions throughout this presentation, but I just wanted to share one, and that was when you mentioned light. You remember when you mentioned light? Okay, the light. It just made me think of Jesus says, I am the light, right? And that's the minister in our midst. So my cognition is when we study, I wrote it down, when in studying the words of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we can move more quickly into the mind of Allah by his permission. And, yes, sir. Yes, sir. That was my.
Praise be to Allah.
Yeah, thank you, Sister Tina. Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. I I had a couple while you all were talking about. We talked about at one time quick moving. I don't know if it was fast thinking right down to the modern time, but I thought about right down to the modern time and how the speed would be quicker. And then the lessons talks about speaking in past, present, future, and perfect tense. And I thought about how the out-of-body experience that I had, that I went to this place. And then when I actually went to the place, I had to hold myself, because I couldn't believe I'm here, but I was there at the place. But I had been there prior to actually coming there. And then I thought about this vehicle that they went down in the ocean. This is on the news now.
Mhm.
And going under the deep waters, which has a when you go under the waters, it's like you're in a whole new world.
Mhm.
And no one has extracted the depths or the heights,
Mhm.
according to, I don't know where I heard that from. And so that's we exploring the Titanic. And sometimes I know when you start talking to people like that, they do look at you like something wrong with that person, because quantum physics or physics or anything that's out of this world, the educational system says anything out of this world is crazy, because they look at you're out of your mind, and you are. You're not crazy out of your mind, but you out of this mind that they try to hold your thinking and your process in. You come out of that mind into, like you said, the mind of God. And when you come to the mind of God, there's no limit. It's like no limit soldier. There's nothing that you can't concede in your mind and bring it forth, like you say, postulate into a reality. So all of that was coming together, which it did expand my thought, my mind process on how I'm going to deal with whatever comes to me, how to take it and expand it. Like you're saying, so no matter what the subject matter is, you take it. And I think the minister said about his mother that she would take a dime and milk it into $1. I'm understanding that concept about milking it into $1. And then I think Minister Rasul was talking about Mother Tanetta, how when he looked, she was sitting in one place, but when he looked again, she was somewhere else. Yep. She had moved. And as you were talking, my mind started thinking about all of the things that people say that's impossible, or when they looking at it and it's real, they say that's a movie. It's like, these not the end of days. I'm looking, I see it, but no, it's not up there. I mean, it's like deceptive intelligence, like you're not seeing what you're seeing. And those are things that came to my mind, and my mind is still ticking. I just want you to know. Thank you, sir.
Well, thank you. It's good that your mind is ticking, because all of our minds are ticking right now. Go ahead, Sister Ania.
Okay, just wanted to just give it, I guess, a little demo kit on, I forget who it was. Somebody mentioned past, present, and future. And in what Sister Denise was just saying, it made me think of a little book I read. It was a children's book that explained the concept of time, and I've used this over the years, especially back when I used to teach some classes that dealt with trying to introduce some of the concepts that Mother Tainetta would speak on. And oftentimes, just as you do with us, we break it down into smaller bites that we can chew on. So this little book explained time in the sense of, okay, you had two vehicles, and I'm thinking about the two dots that you talked about, but you had two vehicles traveling along the road, and one of the vehicles is, let's say, approximately 2 or 3 miles ahead of the other one. So for each car, wherever they are on that road, they are in present time. But they cannot see each other. And but then you have a plane up in the sky that's traveling along at whatever speed it's traveling, and it can see both the car in the back and the one that's 2 or 3 miles up the road. It can see both of them at the same time. So for those in the plane, both vehicles are in present time for those on the plane. So back to the cars on the road, since the one in the back has not yet caught up with the one in the front, so as it's traveling up the road, it hasn't caught up with the other one yet. For that car in the back, the one up in front is its future. So it hasn't got to that point yet. So let's just say that it increases its speed. The one in the front travels, it says going 45 miles an hour, but the one in the back is, Speed Gonzalez, and so he speeds up to 65, 70 miles an hour, and so eventually he catches up with the one in front. So now he has brought what was the past for the vehicle in front, he has brought the past up to his present. Or you could reverse that. The one in the front, he has already traveled where the one in the back is. So for him, that is his past.
Yes.
But for the one up in the plane, those up in the plane, past, present, and future all are one.
Are the same. Mm-hmm.
So I just was thinking of that as everybody was recounting their experiences with lucid dreaming and out-of-body experiences, time travel, and all of those types of things that we are, according to the rate of speed, not just of it's not necessarily our physical movement, but the rate of speed of our thinking. And so Sister Denise said fast moving, was it fast moving, quick thinking, or is it the other way around?
It doesn't, actually in our lessons, it doesn't say either one of those. That's just how we always said it. It says cleanliness internally, externally.
Right.
But it doesn't say fast moving and quick thinking.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think we corrected that.
Yeah, we corrected that.
Yeah. But I know I know you're moving. I mean, internally, it's a cycle of action that your body is going through. And I was trying to think. Yes, ma'am. Go ahead.
But we say it. We verbally we use that language.
Yes, that's how we say verbally. But
right.
The lessons in the Supreme Wisdom says quickness, fast moving, cleanliness, internally and externally, right down to the modern times.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But what you just discussed, Sister Anya, was the main theme of that movie that we discussed before called Arrival, with the circular past, present, future tense being at one point.
Mm-hmm.
That's the premise of that movie, Arrival. If you remember that.
Is that the one that you wanted us all to see, but most of us didn't have access to?
This was a while ago. But the way you just phrased it, that I kind of, as you were going, I was like, ooh, the fact, yeah, it's like the person in the plane is looking at future and past, because they can see where the rear car is going and they can see where the front car has already gone.
Right.
So to be able to have that type of vision means we have to increase what? Our altitude.
Our altitude. And it made me think of the fact that we talk constantly of the mother plane. And if we look at that as our level of consciousness, of putting ourselves mentally and spiritually on a higher plane, then that mother wheel is sitting right up on top of our shoulders, in a sense. You could say that in a sense. So again, we have to. You said that we could either fold space, or another way would be to increase the speed. So again, we just using that as a demo kit to describe what we can do with our mind. And then I think the last point Sister Denise brought out was Mother Tynetta sitting in a chair, and then next minute she's somewhere else. And you look around, it's like, how did she do that? That's something to examine. Did she physically speed up that she moved so quick that the eye did not detect that somebody was moving that quick? Or was it something that she did with her mind? Did she fold space, bend space? So that's very interesting to chew on as to how that took place.
Yes, it is. Thank you, Sister Angela. Sister Angela.
Yes, sir. And very quickly, because y'all got me all over the place. I got the Supreme Wisdom out. I got close the gap out. I got everything out. And this formula of being in multiple places. Say He Allah is one. Now, something happened when you were talking about the Indian person that wrote the book, and you said every time when you were younger, you would go to the library, you would see this woman looking at you, right? And as you were speaking, I got a vision in my mind of how this person looked. So I had to see how on point I was, and I pulled the image up, and I got the hair correct before you said long hair. I got the hair correct, even the color of the hair correct. So this is showing me, like, you started this whole thing out. We are getting glimpses of the mind of God. There's only one reality. There's only really one thing going on. Is our ability to peek in and out of it. And whether we know it or not, when we peek in it, or if we live in it, we are no longer ourselves. We are in the mind of God. So I can clearly see how He can be in multiple places at one time.
Very usual line. What is Sister Tina?
Something when Sister Anya was saying what she was saying, I think I already know the answer to this question, but I may not. Folding, I wrote it down. Folding space and increasing speed. Isn't that the same thing? Or is it the same thing?
It's not the same thing, but you can get the same result. And I'm actually going to show you how.
Okay, thank you.
Because really, if you're folding space, you're not traveling. You're bringing it to points.
Well, the reason I asked that question, because when Sister Anya was explaining the cars, you have this car that's up front, future, the car that's in the back, but then the car in the back increases its speed. And so it's moving through space. It's actually moving through the space on the road, and it increases its speed. So it made me think that car is folding space. It's folding space because it increases its speed. Therefore, it catches up with the future, the car that's up front. So, okay, so I'm looking forward to hearing, you know, what you have, because that's what made me think of folding space and increasing speed is the same, but it's not, you say. Okay.
Because again, the folding of space doesn't involve any vehicle speeding up. You're just going instantaneously from one point to another.
Okay.
But now, if you're increasing your velocity, and if you can increase your velocity high enough, you'll accomplish the same result. You'll go from one point to another point instantaneously. So you have the same result, but there's two different methods. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir, it does.
Different methods. Go ahead, Sister Anya.
Going back to those cars, the car that's traveling, that's at the back, okay, up the road is that car's future. Where it is presently is its where the car is now, that's its present. And further back down the road, all the places that it's passed behind, that it has already traveled past, that is its past. And I'm going to jump somewhere else and then come tie it together. When we're taught that when our people, our ancient people, knew that an enemy was coming, that they hid the wisdom. And so essentially Yaqub's civilization, they had to start out almost, I guess you'd say, from basic. So they went through the Stone Age, and it was only through introduction of some of the wise ones from among our people that went to them and taught them things to help speed up the evolution of their civilization. And so the method of travel evolved very slowly. And so and I'm just supposing that the method of travel by speeding up of velocity, you know, whether it's running or getting on a bicycle, getting in a car, even getting in a plane, those are lower forms of travel, which we allowed through the mathematics, which was given to Yaqub civilization, allowed them to evolve those methods of travel. But the higher methods of travel, such as the concept of what we're talking about now, folding, bending space, and the wormhole, those type of things, they're only now start in this last century, I would say, exploring those higher concepts of travel, and that is Allah giving them a peep into the heavens before their whole civilization comes to an end. So those are higher ways of travel using higher mathematics that we hid from them when we knew that an enemy was coming. So just yes, that was it. Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am. And along with that, if you notice, some of the greatest advances that they have made took place after 1910, between 1910 and 1930.
Yes, sir.
What a coincidence.
Yes, no coincidence.
There is no coincidence. You know, so it's almost like the God saying, look, I'm gonna come right up to the enemy, I'm gonna give you some tech, and I'm still gonna destroy you.
Yeah.
Just one way of looking at it. All right. This is going to have to be a part 4. Okay. So what does all of this have to do with fractions, you might say? So again, if we can take two distant points and bend space and travel between the points in an instant, can we do the same thing on a mental level by bending our thinking between two subjects in order to understand them both in less time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
So the wormhole is a demo kit to another way that our mind operates, possibly. Okay. So now, what is the fastest spaceship currently, based on the technology of the Western world? How long would it take it to get to the far planet Platoon? How long would it take a ship to get to Platoon at the speed of thought? How many round trips could we make in 10 seconds? Have y'all ever seen this question before, the last one?
I think it's in the book.
So now, here, I'm not gonna say, I'm gonna read this and I wanna see if you have some cognitions. For current space travel to take place, the rocket ship has to reach what's called an escape velocity, which is a little over 7.5 miles per second. So it comes out to about 7,850 miles per second, which comes out to 17,500 miles per hour. That's what's called escape velocity. In order to break through the ceiling of gravity, a ship has to reach the velocity of a little more than 7 miles per second, or 7.5 miles per second. So now, that's the velocity to break through gravity. In other words, if you're traveling at 6 miles per second, you can't overcome gravity. I'm just going to stop there for a pause for a minute and see if you see something with those numbers.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Sister Tina.
With 7.5, I see the original man has 7.5 ounces of brain.
And a devil, 6 ounces.
6 ounces. So one of those two can escape gravity, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Where's the number 6? I don't see the number 6 in this.
I said 6 miles per second won't allow one to overcome gravity.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay. So now, this is the formula for time. Time equals distance divided by velocity. Now, you see the distance over velocity, that is a rational expression. Okay, that is a rational expression, because in the word rational is the word ratio.
Yeah.
Okay, and a fraction is another aspect of a rational expression, because a fraction is also a ratio, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So when you take the distance to the far planet Platoon, isn't that 4,600,000,000 miles away? Yes.
Say it again.
4,600,000,000 miles away from the sun.
Yes, sir.
And so now, if you had a spacecraft that traveled at 17,500 miles per hour, if you divide that numerator by the denominator, you're going to get 262,857 hours.
Okay.
You divide that, if you have that many hours, and you divide that by 24, you should get 10,952 days. When you divide those days by 365 days, you'll get 30 years. That travel is too slow. You know, the lion wants to get out the cage, so he's got to use modern equipment so he can travel at a quicker pace, correct?
Absolutely.
So what we could say is, to get out of the cage of our own ignorance, or to get out of the cage of our own fear of mathematics and science, we have to find a technology or techniques that will allow us to understand and learn and study these concepts of mathematics, physics, and science, and allow us to grasp these concepts at a quicker pace, so we can continue to get out of this cage, correct?
Right.
Okay. So now with the current technology of this world, it'll take us approximately 30 years. Well, we don't want to travel for 30 years. We want to wormhole this thing. We want to get from point A to point B instantly because, you know, we're taught that we're created in haste anyway, correct?
Right.
We want it now. So now how long would this same journey take if we traveled at the speed of thought? Now here's where the algebra kicks in. Who was that asked about the algebra? Was it Sister Denise?
Yes.
Okay. Here's where the algebra kicks in. Because you see where it says time equals distance over velocity?
Yes.
I could put T equals D over V. Now I'm just using letters. Okay. And the T represents time, the D represents distance, and the V represents velocity. So now I'm using that one formula to solve this problem, but I can take that same formula and solve multiple problems now. So all I need is one formula and I can solve hundreds of problems. That's why algebra is one of the things used for physics. Okay. So we go at the speed of thought, we're the same equation. Time equals distance over velocity. Now, that would be algebra. But once you plug numbers in, once you plug the number in for distance and you plug the number into velocity, what level of mathematics does it become?
Does it become physics then?
No, it's physics now. But right now, if we said T equals D over V, that's algebra. But once I plug the numbers in, then I have one number divided by another number. What level of mathematics has it become?
Fractions.
Arithmetic.
It's fractions, but it's also arithmetic. So the algebra is one level, but once you plug the numbers in, it becomes arithmetic. And if you can do arithmetic, then you can do algebra. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay, all algebra is you're representing a concept using letters, but once you put the numbers in, now it's just arithmetic. So we take the same distance, 4,600,000,000 miles, and we divide it by 24 billion. An interesting number pops up. At the speed of thought, to get to the far planet Pluto would take 19th of a second.
Mm.
There's that number again.
Now, can you tell me how you got to 19th of a second? You just divided it. You didn't have to break it down into seconds. You just
No, because my bottom number is already in seconds. So I'm going to get seconds. Seconds is my input. I'm going to get seconds as an output.
Okay.
Okay. So if you do that division, if you have a calculator that can handle those size numbers without giving you it'll give you to an e to the 10. You know, now you're dealing with scientific notation. If you divide the top number by the bottom number, you should get 0.19.
Okay.
Did everyone else get that number?
Yeah, basically.
So now that tells us if you use the wisdom of this world, you're going to travel very, very slow.
Right.
If we can at least travel the average speed of thought, that'll be 24 billion miles per second, correct?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
See, this world science, you have what's called the Einstein barrier. The Einstein barrier is nothing can travel faster than light, which is 186,000 miles per second, correct?
Right.
What does that teach us about our miserable condition? In order for us to travel more rapidly, we have to travel faster than the educational system of this world.
Absolutely.
We have to get at least to the average speed of thought. That means if that's the average, then there's some individuals whose thought travels faster than that, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So just traveling 4,600,000,000 miles at the speed of thought, average speed of thought, it should come out to the 19th of a second. So this brings us back to the original question. Is the decrease in the distance between 2 points equivalent to the increase in our speed of thought? Traveling at that speed of thought, wouldn't that be the same as folding space?
Yes, sir.
With the velocity.
19th of a second is like that.
Yeah.
With the velocity, absolutely.
So it's kind of like the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So just like that, our mind can travel to Pluto. How long would it take to make 10 round trips? Okay, because this is problem number 30 from the problem book. And now the Honorable Minister Farrakhan did say that, you know, these aren't meant to be, there's more in these problems than just solving them literally.
Right.
And I believe the more we dig into each of these lessons, and we go back to the beginning, go over it again and pick up whatever additional data we can contact, we'll find more and more data. And what is that going to do? That's going to bring us deeper and deeper into our own thinking. Okay. So the uncle of Mr. W.D. Frog lives in the wilderness of North America, surrounded and robbed completely by the caveman. Therefore, he has no knowledge of his own, nor anyone else's, but his mind travels 24 billion miles per second, which is considered the average speed of thought per second. So here you have an individual that's surrounded and robbed completely, but his mind still travels 24 billion miles per second. The question is, how many round trips will he make in 10 seconds to the far planet Pluto? Well, another question to ask is, why would we even have to figure out why he's traveling to make 10 round trips to Pluto? What does that have to do with his miserable condition? And if he's traveling to Pluto, but he's doing it at the speed of thought, then you have to look at another concept is, if his thought is traveling to Pluto, how is it that he's traveling to Pluto if just his thought is going? Where's his body? Go ahead, Sister Angela.
Yeah, you would call me after you said all that.
Oh, your hand is up. I saw your hand.
I know. Okay, let's see how to do this. And I had to take it to the order of this course. Back in 2010, when we were asked by the minister to take this course, in the org in New York, in Times Square at least, it is a very, for the first time, in how we've come out of the westernized way of doing things, those of us that are registered members of the Nation of Islam. And me entering a classroom, excuse me, that is all glass was very, how can I say? It put me in a very, almost a defensive mode, because it was kind of, what the hell am I, a pet type of thing? You know what I'm saying? Are you trying to examine me? But it was a little bit more than that. It made me feel a little less than, right? So
a little less what? A little less what?
Less than. There was something about this that was so unknown that it made me feel less than. It kind of brought on, it kind of intimidated me. That's the word I've been looking for. Okay. It intimidated me to the point that I had to go and talk to myself. It brought me to tears. Not that I had an earlier incident, because I always maintain at least, I was so fluid in school that if I wasn't on honor roll or good citizenship, I'm never known of summer school, anything like that. So, and I didn't do homework since the 5th grade, and I never got left back because my ability to absorb information was so great. My teachers couldn't leave me back because I always made a 90 or better in tests, right? So I had to go and talk to the God within me and of course pray. And it came to me these words: nothing is higher than supreme wisdom, right? Mm-hmm. So I left that space with this in mind. When I returned to that glass classroom, armed with something that I was given upon first entering the Nation of Islam, Brother Minister Qadir Muhammad from DC taught me and us that was interested in supreme wisdom and just study. He told us to find the basic construct of any problem. And when you could find that basic 4 corners, you can build and you can solve said problem. Okay, cool. So when I went back into the glass classroom, I was able almost like to see the construct like on the Matrix. You understand what I'm saying, Brother Guzman? Mm-hmm. It was so crystal clear to me that it enabled me to go through the whole course in 9 days. They never, up until that point, they never seen nothing like that. So I'm bearing witness to what you say, because had I not used supreme wisdom as a demo kit and the foundation, I would have succumbed to the intimidation of this reality that was new to me. Oh, Sister Peggy, in New York, in the org, they have a glass classroom, exactly how it sounds. The walls are glass and they're see-through. Mm-hmm. And it just was a bit intimidating for me,
like
because
you're in a fish bowl. Fish tank.
Exactly. Quiet. It was very disciplined too. Mm-hmm. You were not talking unless you were getting some information.
You don't stay on your cell phone.
Right. No, not even nothing to drink, a cup of coffee, no candy, nothing. So I had to go and, reach into the God and get my gird up, and I'm glad I did, because I think some of that was meant for today. I say this because, and I pray that Allah allow you all to receive it like I'm saying it. Because up until I finished the course, I thought it was normal to finish the course in 9 days or 10 days or 11 days, especially those of us in the Nation of Islam. So I'm bearing witness to what you're saying, brother.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you. Let's take these round trips, and then we'll see if we can land this plane. That's the formula. So what we're doing is we're taking the time, and we're going to divide it by 0.19. This again is what? This is a rational expression. Okay. If you do the math, it comes out to 52.63 trips. But if you talk about round trips, then you have to divide that number by 2, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So it's going to take 26 round. So 26 round trips to that we can do in 10 seconds. And the only data I got from 26 is that's the day that the Savior was born, on the 26th.
The alphabet too.
And you got the Yahoo. Oh wow, here we go. See, that's what I mean. Cognition start rolling in, different perception. Okay. So I say that to say you have slow traveling, you have traveling at the speed of thought, but then you have in both you're traveling great distances, correct?
Yes, sir.
But then the last part is traveling great distances without moving. That's the wormhole, okay? So if we travel between multiple subjects, will that increase the velocity of our thinking? So now on the flip side is this. If we begin to study multiple concepts, will that actually increase the speed of our thought?
Yes, sir. I believe
Because if you look at the uncle, he was surrounded and robbed completely by the caveman, but his thought traveled 24 billion miles per second. That would almost imply that if we were not surrounded and robbed completely, our mind would travel faster than 24 billion miles per second. So what could be a deciding factor that would increase the velocity of our thinking? Studying. And not studying just one subject, but studying multiple
subjects, right?
Okay, you got your hand up against this, Angela?
I sure do, because I wanted to add one more to your 26.
Oh, go ahead.
That I learned through Supreme Wisdom. And when you're studying personalities, there are 13 of them. But since we're doing round trips, just like with personalities, you have A and B personalities, so you have to master both of them. So you understand what I'm saying? So what I'm seeing in your demo kit up here is the ability, especially with all that is on top of us, we have to master both. You know, Yakub's made man mastered us, but he didn't master himself. That's what I said.
And I remember Pluto means little fool, doesn't it? That means we got to go visit that little fool in ourselves. We got to make a round trip. Go ahead, Sister Peggy.
Thank you. I have a question about if we travel between multiple subjects, will that increase the velocity of our thinking? So when I was in school, in nursing school, we would, at one time, we would just study each different subject, systems. But the next year, they tried something different in that we would do it holistically. So if you learned about the heart, you have to learn about it in the pediatric, in maternal, in medicine, in all of that in one subject, in one classroom. Whereas before, we had maternal, pediatric, and then when we got to the heart, then we would just learn about all that, but it was different. So is that what you mean by this being more holistic, about learning all of them at the same time?
I'll give you another example. So okay, so you're in, so what is your understanding of cardiology?
So when we studied
like if I was to talk about cardiac rhythms, like ventricular tachycardia, VFib, where are you on that point? If I start throwing some out there, would you remember certain things?
Yeah, it was so long ago. It was in this. It was in this. Okay.
But it's still on your time track though. It's still
right. Okay, I understand. Okay.
Okay, now let's learn cardiology and relationships at the same time. So we're going to wormhole two subjects. We're taking what appears to be two totally different subjects, and we're going to look at them as if we're going to look at them in the same space-time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. That's what we did the next year. Okay. They tried something different. So yeah, we did cardiology in different subjects, in different systems.
Okay. The minister is teaching it like this. 2 basic rules. Torchlight for America, page 48, page 51. I've quoted it 1,000 times. Put God at the center of your education. Study the subject as if you're studying yourself. Now, real quick, you remember that the heartbeat is based on the sinoatrial node communicating with the atrioventricular node, correct? SA and the AV, yes?
The AV node, yes.
Okay, now, SA node is sending a signal to the AV, and the AV is doing the work, right? SA node sends the impulse, the AV
the ventricle.
and produces the heartbeat, right? Now, on one level, we could say that is the captain and the lieutenant. Captain gives instructions, the lieutenant does what? Does the work. That's a principle. But now let's look at this as far as a relationship. Now, some of us can see this as far as a relationship in our marriage, or we can look at this as a relationship with our children. Well, watch this. If the SA node gives an instruction and the AV node takes the instruction and does the work at the proper time, that's a normal heartbeat, right? Okay. If the SA node gives the instruction or the impulse and the AV hesitates and then beats, isn't that called a first degree block?
The block, yes.
Okay. So there's a pause between the AV node receiving the instruction and doing the work. Sometimes we got children that act like that, right? Right? Tell them to do something and they hesitate and they want to do it when they're ready to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now, if that relationship gets even worse, you give an instruction. Not only is there a longer pause, but sometimes you might have to give the instruction twice before the AV node does one heartbeat, right? Sister Melanie, what is that called in cardiac terms?
A second
degree block.
That's a second degree block.
Mm-hmm.
Third degree is when the AV node is saying one thing and the AV node is doing what the hell it wants to do.
Yes, to do. Mm-hmm.
So a third degree block tells you what's about to happen.
Nothing.
What comes after a third degree heart block?
Complete block.
That's a cardiac arrest, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now we just went over basic cardiac rhythms, but we spoke about relationships with our spouses and we spoke about relationship with our children all at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Now you could say the same thing about the SA node being the analytical mind and the AV node being the reactive mind.
Mm-hmm.
Because if the reactive mind and analytical mind are working, if the reactive mind doesn't have a lot of blockages, then there's a normal heart rate, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if that impulse is going through this reactive mind and there's some stuff there, it's going to cause a block. Does that make sense? So we can use the heart as a demo kit to understand the relationship between the reactive mind and the analytical mind. What do? We just wormhole the subject. We're talking about two different things that seem that different, but really the principle is what? It's still the same principle. So when you understand the principle, you understand many things at once, yes?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead, Sister Zakia.
Yes, I looked at that as the communication is the blood, and lack of communication is causing heart attacks.
Yes.
And so, and it's funny how you broke it down like that, because that was always my issue with no communication. I'm like, y'all causing heart attacks and y'all causing blood clots and da-da-da. And here you did, just explained it, and appreciate you for that.
That's why they call me Mutual Aid Muhammad. Okay. Go ahead, Sister Ania.
Yes, sir. I couldn't find the sheet of paper I was looking for, so I just have to go off memory, and anybody that knows it can correct me. But there's whatever is on the paper, it's when we're learning the alphabet and the numbers, and it said when you're teaching the children to teach them, when you teach them A, to teach them 1. So you're teaching them the alphabet and the numbers at the same time. Does anybody remember seeing that?
But I understand.
Okay, well, I'll leave that alone. But it related to what you were saying about learning the subjects. You know, not just one subject, but learning them. You know, relating more than one thing at the same time, like you just described about the heart. And and then Sister Peggy's experience, did you find that you learned more and retained more studying just one subject at a time, or when they changed the method?
I don't recall. I just remember that they called it holistic. And because you learned it in the one classroom, heart, maternal and child, heart, maternal, pediatric, medicine, and something. And you're supposed to be able to pull it all together when you talk about the heart. It didn't really make a lot of sense to me, and I didn't pay attention to it because I liked the way I learned it the first time. And that's when I went to state boards. I remembered from the first year the way they taught, because that other way didn't really make that much sense.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
Go ahead, Sister Tina. You're on mute, Sister Tina.
Yes, sir. Sister Anya, she sparked something when she just said what she said. Problem 13, is that the one? I'm trying to find it in my Supreme Wisdom, but is problem 13 the one where it talks about if you learn?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
If you actually have that hard-covered Supreme Wisdom, it's on page 6.
Right in front of me. What page is it on?
Page 6.
Page 6. Okay. Page 6. Don't tear up the book. Page 6. Am I there yet? Nope.
And that's in the hardcover. And the reason why I remember that is the number 13 is the 6th prime number. And when you add them together, you get 19.
Okay. Yes, sir. Okay. There are 26 letters in the language, and if a student learns one letter per day, then how long will it take him to learn the 26 letters? And then it talks about the 10 numbers, learning it at the same pace. Yeah. You know, there are 10 numbers in the mathematic language. Then how long will it take a student to learn the whole 10 numbers at the same rate? The average man speaks 400 words considered well. So it's really, what I'm seeing is that learning one number per day at the same rate, I can do both, learn a number and a I just saw that, but you know what I'm saying, right? I can't explain it really. Yeah.
No, I understand it.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. All right. So quick overview. I think we can handle this in the next couple of minutes. What are the components of a fraction? What is the rational expression? Well, we should know that by now. That's what we've been talking about. What is meant by simplifying a fraction? And how do we use it as a demo kit? And this is where we're going to end it. So now, this is just a review. We know that we have the numerator and we have the denominator, correct? Okay. And this is from the last week. So, you know, we can find that on the video. So what is simplification? Okay, you want to reduce something down to basic essentials. And that's basically what we're doing. We're taking a topic and we're reducing it down to the basic essentials, because the principle is the basic essential. And if you can find the principle in a concept, you'll find that principle in all concepts. So it's not necessary for us to really study 100 different concepts. If we understand the principle and we can apply it to 100 concepts, then we can know all 100 concepts all at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Simplification means to make more intelligible, and it's synonymous with the word demonstrate, demystify, and explain. One thing L. Ron Hubbard spoke about is if you cannot explain a concept in your own language, then you don't understand the concept. Okay. So what you're doing is you're finding out what each number has in common and reduce it to the smallest fraction. So this part, we're going to move pretty fast so we can finish the concept. We're going to move pretty fast. So now a fraction, that's called a rational expression. We got that. And it's a ratio. It is an expression that contains a ratio, which is a relationship between two or more numbers, things, ideas, or concepts. Okay, that's a ratio. This mathematical concept can teach us a valuable lesson with regards to learning any concept. This will make sense in a quick minute. So if I start with this number, 12 over 16, that's a fraction, but it's also a rational expression, but it's also division, right?
Right.
The cycle of action is, first, you want to factor each number. You want to list the numbers in order. Identify the greatest common denominator. Okay, that's the cycle of action for simplifying a fraction. So if I factor each number, these are the factors of the number 12, correct? The factors are all the ways I can produce that number 12 through multiplication. 1 times 12, 2 times 6, 3 times 4. I do the same thing for the number 16. 1 times 16, 2 times 8, 4 times 4. Okay. I list all my factors in order. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, and 12. I list all the factors for 16, 1, 2, 4, 8, and 16. And then I identify the number that is common in both. You see it in green? So 4 is what those two numbers have in common. That's factors. Now, could we say that when I factored those numbers, is that the same as defining those numbers? You know how you take a word and you look up the definition? So could we say the same thing about the numbers? I have the number 12, but the definition for 12 is 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. Okay, just taking this concept of definition, but applying it to mathematics. This is gonna make sense in a minute. So 4 is my common. So I'm defining the numbers and finding things that the numbers have in common. And this is part of simplifying a rational expression. Now, once I have that number, that 4, I put 4 on the top and I put 4 on the bottom, right? 12 divided by 4 equals what? That's 3. 16 divided by 4 equals 4. So simplifying a rational expression means you reduce it down to the point where the only thing they have in common is the number 1. If I take the number 3, that's a prime number. It's only 1 times 3, correct? I take number 4, that's 1 times 4 and 2 times 2. The common number between both is 1. And we know 1 represents what?
Allah.
1 represents Allah. Say He, Allah is 1, right?
Yes, sir.
But really, when you look at it, when you're simplifying a rational expression, you're looking for God in the expression. So where you find the common theme in multiple concepts, you're looking for God. And that's the truth that's universal in all things. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
And if you take that number 4/4, okay, simplification is the reduction of a fraction down to the greatest common denominator is 1. 4/4 equals 1, correct?
Yes.
So simplification of a rational expression is like taking two different ways of thinking, two different ideologies, two different thoughts, taking the Tao Te Ching, taking the Baha'i, taking Islam, taking Christianity, and you're looking for the God factor in it. What factor connects all these concepts together? There's an old saying that truth is one. This comes from what's called the Vedas. This is the ancient Indian text. Truth is one, but the wise know it by many names.
Okay.
Okay, so we're taking a mathematical concept and we're about to do something else with it. So does this make sense, simplifying a rational expression?
Yes, sir.
Okay, but now we're going to extract from this a concept to apply it to study. Okay, the number one is the universal factor. The number one is the only number that exists, correct?
Sir.
Okay. Here's the application. Here's where we'll end it for today. Can the same process be applied to the study of different subjects? Meaning, can we take different concepts and apply the same concept of simplifying a rational expression? Can we study data as a ratio of information and simplify the concept in order to understand both concepts on a higher level? I'm just going to do one example. Take the word demon circuit and the word whispering devil. Okay. And I just wrote it like this to show it as like a ratio. Demon circuit, whispering devil. Mathematical concept, but we're applying it to the supreme wisdom and the supreme technology, but this can be applied to anything that we study. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So we will define both terms and then identify the common factors. And by identifying the common factors, that would be the same as simplifying the rational expression. Okay. So here's the word whispering devil. The Arabic is the root word is waswasa. And it means to speak under one's breath, to whisper, to instill evil, to prompt, to tempt, to awaken doubt, to feel uneasy, devilish, temptation, disturbance, wicked thoughts, suspicion, delusion, anxiety, melancholy, grief, obsessed with delusions. Okay, so whispering devil relates to the lower tone scale, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we define that word. It's the same as taking the 12 and saying 1 times 12, 2 times 6, and 3 times 4. That's defining the number. Here, we're defining the word. Demon circuit. One who gives thought voice or echoes the spoken word interiorly or gives all sorts of complicated advice like a real live voice exteriorly. Any command seeking to dominate or nullify the individual. A charged part of the analytical mind which has been captured by the reactive mind and does its bidding. Any circuit that vocalizes thoughts for you. I got the two expressions. Now let's see what they have in common. If I look at the word instill and I look at the word give, aren't those two words similar? But if you clear the word instill and you clear the word give, I'm sure you'll, in there somewhere, you'll find the synonyms that would unite those two words together. Yes. Okay. Speaking and spoke. Well, that's obvious. So right now, to rationalize this expression, two things they have in common. Something that's being said that's producing a result. Could we agree to that?
Right.
Okay.
Yes.
If you look at the word to awaken doubt and to nullify, are those two things the same?
Mhm.
Okay. So in simplifying a rational expression, finding common elements that are the same right now between whispering devil and demon circuit, we already know that it's a voice that has something to do with nullifying
Mhm.
within self. And if we look at prompt or dominate, it's a voice that forces us to do something. If it's forcing us, it means it's producing force on us to do something that we don't want to do. And the voice is coming from within. Can we agree on that?
Mhm.
So now we've taken a concept from Scientology and a concept from our teachings or from the Holy Quran. We have basically cleared them. And then what we did was we found common factors between both. Can we see how this is simplifying a rational expression, but applied to data? Can we see it?
Mhm.
Did this make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
So when we can understand the definitions that both terms have in common, it simplifies both concepts, correct?
Mhm.
Yes, sir.
So now we know both concepts at the same time. So now if I'm talking to a Muslim, I can speak Scientology, demon circuit, but I do it through the language of whispering devil. So I'm traveling between two subjects at the same time. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Mhm.
I'm wormholing the concept. I have Dianetics in my mind, but I'm translating Dianetics to the language of Islam. It's like when the Most High Allah said, when you give a baby a Bible, you put some Islam in it. The believer doesn't know that I'm talking tech. They think I'm talking Surah 114.
Mhm.
And I am talking Surah 114, but I have the ability to travel between two planets at the same time, right?
Right.
I'm traveling between two subjects without moving. So we can understand more than one concept at once. So if I have 5 different people, 5 different planets or subjects, I can speak to all 5 at the same time between the planet subjects without moving. Yes?
Mhm.
So we have the distance between the two concepts, which will allow the speed of our thinking to increase. That makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we will begin to maneuver between multiple subjects at once. Summary. Contained in the study of mathematics are different layers of thinking because it represents the mind of God. And we have to go at it from a 3-dimensional, 4th-dimensional, or even 5th-dimensional viewpoint. As we study the various levels of mathematics, we can unlock aspects of our own being. So we're going to have our own individual cognitions. Where was the cognition before you heard what you heard? It was already contained within us, but it was dormant. Okay. If we can find the common elements of various subjects, topics, or concepts, we're able to travel between subjects. The ship can travel between planets in an instant of time. Does that make sense? This allows us to understand vast amounts of data at one time. And that concludes. Does anyone have any questions, closing statements, comments? Go ahead, Sister Denise.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I mean, I feel like I'm going 90 miles an hour right now. You know, my thinking process is I just spoke with my nephew about a subject, and I don't know, applying this concept that you gave us to be able to do both concept at the same time. You know, I was relating that, and I was thinking about my son is getting married, and he was saying that he wanted me to do the Muslim prayer. And this pastor, I guess he's going to do the Christian prayer. And I was thinking about how I could do two in one, because, you know, and by you explaining this concept, finding the common denominators of, you know, as we look at the definition, I was thinking about how I would do that they would say, oh, you know, I like that Muslim prayer. You know, they're saying the same thing we're thinking, because he was, you know, I didn't want them to see the difference, because this is one family, my daughter-in-law, and then our family. And I wanted to sort of bring us together with that. And you, with being the godfather that you are, you're able to to show me how to apply the concept to anything. Because I'm telling you, I feel like I'm on another plane. What'd you say the plane was?
Mother plane.
Yeah, the mother plane, and on a plane that and then we can eliminate a lot of this division that we have.
Exactly.
Okay, instead of fighting our family members, you know, and you don't believe like I believe, and you a Muslim, I'm a Christian. I say, what that mean? You know, let's go to what it really means. And so that concept about understanding both terms and what each one have in common has really helped me, because I'm telling you, I am sitting in this chair now, but I'm speeding. You not speed on that other type of stuff. But you know, I feel like I'm speeding because the opening of the circumference, that my diameter, you know, has been expanded so I can't wait to go and see what else. You know, it's like you found something, you want to go and see. Let me read this. Whoa, I didn't see this at first. You know, let's see what these concepts, you know, break it down to the lowest common denominator. You know, you want it not to be big, but as low as you can go, because now you're getting to the root of it. And that's what I thought about as you was talking about lower the common denominator. And that's why I was telling you, I know I remember doing physics, but after I took that test, because they make it seem like it's so difficult. So you want to get away from it. It's like, give me the test. Did I pass it? I got a C. Good. I'm you know, it's because they don't make it where I can relate to it. They don't make it where it will cause me, like I'm about to do now, to go and in debt in something else, you know, to learn other things. Yes, sir. So I'm done. Thank you.
Oh, no problem. All praise due to Allah. Every concept, every equation, no matter from what standpoint you study it from, you're going to always be able to learn more about the mind of Allah and learn more about aspect of yourself.
Yes, sir. Thank you, brother.
That's just the way the universe is set up. But that's not the way Western education system is designed. It doesn't want us to wake up.
Oh, okay.
It gives us just enough to be a good worker bee, so we can make someone else rich.
Yeah.
Right. Because my granddaughter said, she said, I don't understand why a teacher can't explain this to us. Just open up the book, read it, and then she gives us a test on what we read. And she explains nothing. And I said, it's called teach yourself what you need to learn. But I said, I was going to ask you, how do you do that? So I can tell her when I talk with her about relating the concept, seeing what both have in common, as you showed us.
Yes. See what they have in common. In the educational system of this world is not education. It's called indoctrination.
Oh, indoctrination. Yes, sir.
So when you look at in doctrine, you're looking at information to put into a person. But the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, when you deal with the word education, it comes from the Latin word educo, which means to bring something out. So education is supposed to be both. I'm supposed to put something in the student, but the student is supposed to be able to bring out something. And that's not the same as parakeeting. So if I teach the student something about physics, if I was a teacher and I taught a concept dealing, like, for example, with the wormhole, part of what I would do as a teacher, say, okay, take that concept, your homework assignment is apply it to yourself. What can you learn about you by applying this concept to yourself? So now what are you doing? You're assigning the student and giving them the opportunity to bring a new idea out. Now, there's nothing new in the universe. I understand that, but it's new for that student because they never thought about it on that level. So you're bringing the student face to face with a part of themselves that they've never even knew existed, which is God. And the teacher gets to learn. Because as I hear your cognitions, I'm like, oh, that's deep.
Yeah.
You don't see me. Sometimes you say, I take note, because to me, that's an assignment. I got to go study that now. So I always keep a piece of paper. I keep my paper and I have a pen, and as you're talking, I'm taking notes.
Yes, sir.
Because I'm just as interested to hear your thinking, because why? Because God is talking to God.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now I understand the whole, to teach the whole child and not just that lesson.
Don't just
but to see how it relates to everything, to art, to math, to science. Teach the whole concept. But I didn't know how to bring it together to make it all one whole, to flip it.
When you have a student give you their interpretation or how they understand the concept, that is like a form of processing. That's a form of processing that'll raise their tone scale up.
Yes, sir.
And then they'll begin to appreciate and have a thirst for the gaining of knowledge.
Yes, because that's the concept, is to be a student.
Yes.
That's why the ministers say we're always students. I mean, I don't know how you can live in this world, in the universe, and not be a student, learning constantly. Yes, sir. Thank you, beloved.
How many of us have went on and studied different subjects? And I'm not taking no credit for none of this, but how many of us have gone on and just said, I'm gonna try studying this. I'm gonna try to do that. How many of us have just made an attempt to learn new things and have actually learned new things in the last 3 to 6 months? Has anyone picked up something new?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. I'm at my, I put a pot of coffee on, I'll be here at my desk I got 3 days off. I go back to work till Saturday. Yes. My time, I'm sitting at my desk because my mind is racing between different subjects.
Yes, sir. Exactly.
And that's my drug of choice. That's how I get high.
Yes, sir.
So when the minister says, he says, I'm high right now, I understand what he's talking about. I understand that. That's a wonderful feeling to travel. Your mind is traveling at different speeds between different subjects.
Yes.
The pain comes in when you don't have anyone to share it with, because there's no one to share it. But these Zoom meetings, I can unload my whole brain right here and get ready for the next one.
Right.
Yes, sir.
It's a blessing.
It is. That's why I said I'm on tone 40 when I leave you all. It's like I'm on tone 40. Okay, what's happening today? Yeah. Like I can handle my day after being with all of you on this Zoom. Thank you, brother.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you, Godfather. You know what Godfather I'm talking about, right? I'm talking about the Black Godfather of Harlem. Whenever Black people wanted to expand, do business, creativity, whatever. What is his name? The brother, he's an older brother. but anything Black people wanted to do, because that's his investment into our people that has never been done before. That's the person everybody went to, was him. And they call him the Godfather.
Bumpy Johnson.
What's his name?
Bumpy Johnson. Bumpy Johnson, the Godfather of Harlem.
Yes, but I thought he had a different name.
Ellsworth.
Sir?
Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson.
Oh, okay. Well, I know anything in entertainment, whatever it was, that's who they would see, because he would put his money behind them, you know, that their thought process wasn't limited, you know, and they wasn't selling it to them. They was just expanding their consciousness, and he could grab it some type of way and will assist helping them, whether it was financially or expanding it a little bit more, you know. And I love art, because I realize art is just not in drawing and pictures, but it's the mind and how the mind creates and expands. So see, I learned that too, Godfather.
Well, the goal is to get everyone doing various levels of mathematics, physics, and science.
Yes, sir.
That's like one of the number one goals I have in life, to take away that negative feeling towards math and science.
Yes, sir.
And make it enjoyable, and to simplify it, because it's really not complicated. It's just, unfortunately, we had teachers that they taught it in a way that they made it complicated, but I think that was by design.
Yeah, the best thing that a person can say, that's easy.
That's what
I said, it's easy.
That's what I like to hear.
It's easy. Oh, that's great, because it's easy. I said, now you're learning, because learning is easy when you make sense. My grandfather used to say. Yes, thank you, beloved.
Thank you. Go ahead, Sister Sultana.
Yeah, assalamu alaikum. Yeah, so math was always my best subject in school. I loved math. I loved algebra, I loved geometry. And in school, it was not hard. But I remember going back to college, and since it had been such time, I had to retake some algebra classes. And I was listening to the teacher explain it, and I was like, I don't remember it being this difficult. Like, why is it so complicated? These processes are way longer than they used to be. Like, what's going on? And I said, this was definitely by design, that they have what they call the new math. So right after that's the new math came, and I was like, the new math. And when I was trying to help some little younger kids learn, younger children learn, and they were explaining to me what the teacher was telling them what they had to do. I'm like, it was never this many steps to do.
It's horrible. Common core stuff.
Yes, it's really crazy, but that was my favorite subject. I still love math, even when I was in college, and it sounded kind of crazy. But I just think that it's just a matter of relating it to what we call, like, remember I told you I went to the school, the Ayurvedic school in Iowa, and that was when we had to do each subject. We had to relate it back to divine creative intelligence. So that's, to me, the same thing. We had to take each subject and relate it. How is it related to God? How is God in this subject? How is God, manifesting its intelligence to this subject? Yeah. Alhamdulillah.
Thank you. All right, Sister Ani, I saw your hand up. We'll let you have the last comment, and then we'll go ahead and close it out.
Yes, sir. Wahid and I were having a conversation this morning about, it involved the atoms and the form of the original God. And during the conversation, I made the comment that the God was lonely. So he created woman. And again, we were talking about not in the form that we're in now as male and female. And we were discussing, what that form could be, and we were delving into the atoms and everything. And so, but Wahid asked me the question. He said, how do you know that the God was lonely? And so I said, well, because the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan told us so. He said, yeah, but how do you know that he was lonely? I said, well, didn't Minister Farrakhan say that Master Fard Muhammad went back into the mind of the original God? So in that, he saw that the original God was lonely. So anyway, we was going back and forth on it. But as we had class today, there was some comments made earlier when Sister Angela had brought up some points, and then just your comment just now towards the end there, you said that that how painful it was to have have this type of knowledge and have all this but then not have anybody to be able to share that with. And so it took me back to that loneliness that the God felt in the beginning, and that so because he was expanding his knowledge, expanding his mind with all of the everything that he was discovering and creating, but then he had nobody to discuss that with, bounce ideas off with. So he could have created another male. This is what I thought, as you said that about the pain of it, is that he could have created another male, but if he had done that, and this is just me talking now, if he had done that, then he would have had a companion that thought as he thought. And so by creating woman, she brought in a totally different element. And because her way of thinking would bring greater expansion, and it would not just reflect back to him the way he thought, but she would look at it from a different viewpoint, from a different angle, and be able to give much more dimension to the whole thought process. Yeah. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, sounds good to me. That's a great observation.
Well, Lukeman, that's why the women minister to Jesus. That's all I got to say. I know it's in the Bible, but they were ministering to him. Come on now.
All right.
That's all I got to say.
All right, family.
Yes, sir.
Did we go 3 hours? Good.
Yes, sir.
Yes. All right, family. My goal is always to get this across within 2 hours, and I just lose track of time. I apologize. Get better on this thing.
No apology necessary.
I have no idea what the topic is going to be for Sunday. I'm just waiting for my assignment. If anyone has a subject, please send me an email. I got some good notes here. If you have a concept, send me an email. I'll see if I can put my brain on it and study it for the next couple of days. And with that being said and done, I want to thank you for your time, your patience, and your attendance, your cognition, your wins, your thoughts. And I pray a lot that we will be able to see each other again in a few short days. Yes. And with that, we will go ahead and close it out in prayer. Sure. Attention prayer. I seek refuge in Allah from the accursed Satan. In the name of Allah, the Beneficent, the Merciful, all praise is due to Allah, Lord of the worlds, the Beneficent, the Most Merciful, Master of the day of judgment in which we now live, the alone that we serve, thine aid do we seek. Please, Allah, guide us on the straight path, the path upon whom thou hast bestowed favors, not the path upon whom thy wrath is brought down, nor of those who go astray if they have heard thy teaching. Ameen. Assalamu alaikum, family.
Walaikum
salam.
Shukran. Alaikum.
Alaikum assalam, everyone. Shukran. Have a beautiful day.
You too.
Alaikum.
Alaikum salam.